Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to now invite on stage Mr. Vipul Seksaria, co-founder of KaleidofIn. KaleidofIn and SBM Bank together are launching Kai Cash, which means reimagining banking and financial solutions for informal sector customers and nano entrepreneurs. May I have your attention, please? Ladies and gentlemen, can we all please settle down? We have a networking tea break right after this presentation. It's a 15-minute presentation, and we promise you networking tea right after this little presentation. Can we all have a round of applause to welcome the KaleidofIn team here? Requesting Mr. Vipul Seksaria, co-founder of KaleidofIn, to now make his presentation.
It's just about afternoon. Request everybody to get seated. So good afternoon to everyone. My name is Vipul. I'm a co-founder at KaleidofIn. Let me quickly introduce KaleidofIn to you. At KaleidofIn, our mission is to propel customers to achieve their real-life goals. And we do this by providing intuitive and tailored financial solutions. Over the years, we have built multiple products at KaleidofIn, both on savings and credit, on credit scoring models, on a platform that delivers credit, on multiple products on the savings side. Along with many of our partners who are present in this room today, we've realized how critical a savings bank account is to the life of a customer. And unfortunately, in many ways, this savings bank account that becomes the recipient of multiple loan disbursements, multiple payments that the customer has to make, this falls short, in some cases big way, and makes it hugely expensive and inconvenient for the customer. And in some other cases, makes it just not make the customer feel so good about having a bank account. Let me, over the next few minutes, share with you some stories that we have all encountered. Many of you would be familiar. Here is a customer called Nirmala, who, to check her bank balance, has to walk 3 kilometers away because there is no nearby merchant point or an AEPS point where she can actually walk up and check her bank balance. Similarly, another customer complains to us when we were talking to her recently that my MFI disbursed a 10,000 rupee loan into my bank account, but I only found 8,500 remaining. Now, this was not a case of a fraud or somebody duping her or anything of that sort. These were just accumulated charges from the bank over a period of time, which got impacted when there was balance in the bank account, which came as a result of the loan disbursement that this MFI did. I'll just repeat, because I see more silence now, that this was a customer who got a 10,000 rupee loan and eventually found only 8,500 rupee remaining, not on account of a fraud or something, but just on account of accumulated charges which the bank basically applied when the balance came in. I'm sure lots of you would have heard this or figured this as you interact with your customers. This is another customer recently when we were walking around and happens to see my gold card and says that I like the way your gold card looks. I like your name on it, but unfortunately I don't have one. This is another customer who says that a lot of people think that we can't use smartphones. But the fact is, and pointing out to her children, that each of my kids actually have a smartphone today. But until today, I don't have a banking app that makes us comfortable in using the app in a friendly, intuitive manner. And that's the reason when on many things we are going digital, on banking we are unable to, because the language in which the bank app interacts with me is not something that I'm most comfortable with. Here is another customer from South India who says that, why can't my messages come to me in my language, in this case Tamil? That why can't I get my bank SMS, debit SMSs in my language so that I can read that this is a debit from an Uber payment or whatever she has used in that time. All of these problems that I was just sharing over the last few minutes, these are not new problems. These have been affecting our customers, affecting our businesses, all of you who serve these customers in a big way. But the sad part is we haven't been able to find a holistic solution to this. And in the absence of that, this remains a big impediment in our customers going digital, in driving true financial inclusion, and more importantly, in driving true financial independence for our customers, both women and men alike. Today, we take a step forward, and I would like to introduce to you KaiCash. KaiCash is a full KYC, full service savings account brought to you by Kaleidofin in partnership with SBM Bank. Here, each customer, in this case Vimla Devi, will also get a debit card, a hard debit card in her hand, and she will be able to use this wherever she wants to. KaiCash is also an app that speaks in customers' languages, and we know in India there is no one language. You change states and the language changes. This is an app that will work seamlessly in the language of choice of the customer, whether it is Hindi, Tamil, Punjabi, whatever the language be. One important thing, KaiCash in this journey which we are starting today is going to remove the unknown from the banking experience for this customer. So simple promise, no unknown. And just to elaborate my point, no annual maintenance charges, no SMS charges, and most importantly, no bounce charges. A lot of our folks here in this room would have set up payment mandates with our customer using e-mandate, e-NAC, paper NAC mandate, and we would have realized that it's very difficult to run these mandates with the customer. Not customer's problem, honestly speaking. Because if the mandate fails, if it bounces, there is a huge amount of bank bounce charge that is applied on the bank account. And once the customer experiences that, it is very difficult to get a consent from the customer to take a digital payment thereafter. KaiCash also comes with a UPI ID for every customer on day one. Now, this might sound trivial to a lot of us, like people who are in fintech, that, okay, what is such a big deal about UPI ID? All of us have it. But to create a UPI ID, as of today, you need a debit card. And a majority of microfinance customers across our country today don't have a UPI ID, and for that reason, can't make a UPI payment. KaiCash on day one comes with a UPI ID. KaiCash offers an app which provides the customer balance on the fingertip in their vernacular language. It offers a live passbook, and in case they're still not super comfortable with a smartphone and an app there, they can give a missed call free of cost. They get their balances every time, over a voice message as well as a text. One more important point. All of this, I'm sure you are able to connect the dots. KaiCash also enables a very seamless disbursement and collection experience for all of us here, microfinance lenders, NBFCs who are serving this customer day in, day out. It ensures a one-step account opening process, which your loan officer, in a matter of less than 2 minutes, can open this bank account from a doorstep of the customer or a center meeting or a bank or your MFI branch. It ensures that you are able to disburse the loan and on real time know that this loan landed to the customer. You have a full reconciliation done automatically. And all of this is supported with digital payments. I'm sure all of us are encouraging our customers to go digital. But this bank account now empowers the customer to take that jump. Because there are no charges, there are no bounce charges, customer can freely afford and sort of sign up for these digital mandates to make repayments digitally. And more importantly, the customer can walk up to, across the country, any AEPS point and do cash in, cash out from those points as well, to deposit money into their account and to withdraw. There are customers who are shopkeepers. They will get QR codes from where they can receive money from their customers through this QR code right into the bank account and make their payments from there on. My submission here is to sort of come to the end of this presentation, is come partner with us to supercharge your customers' banking experience with KaiCash. Today we will launch KaiCash, at this very amazing event at Sa-Dhan. And to launch the event, launch the card, I would request my team to help me in bringing the card on stage. Thank you, Rajdeep and Salita. I would now request the dignitaries to come on stage to help us unveil the KaiCash card. Mr. Gigi Memon, CEO Sa-Dhan, request you to please come on stage. Mr. Neeraj Sinha, Head Retail and Consumer Banking SBM, please come on stage. Mr. HP Singh, CMD at Satin, please come. Mr. S. Venkatesh, MD and CEO of IFL Samasta, and Puneet Gupta, co-founder at Kaleidofin. Please, I would request. Please join us in applauding. Thank you very much. I'm now going to request Mr. Neeraj Sinha to stay on stage and share a few words with us.
So, I'm standing between tea and this, so I'll actually say very few words. ये हमारे लिए on behalf of SBM Bank and आप लोगों को शायद पता भी नहीं हो हमारे बारे में, हम लोग बहुत छोटे से बैंक हैं. हमको 4 साल पहले इंडिया में लाइसेंस मिला है. हमने एक ही मिशन से काम स्टार्ट किया है. इंडिया में डिपेंडिंग ऑन हु यू आस्क, इधर वी आर ओवर बैंक्ड और वी आर अंडर बैंक्ड. आप जिस सेक्शन में प्रॉब्ली आप अंडर बैंक्ड बोलते हैं. सो व्हाट वी हैव ट्राइड टू डू इज़ आज के दिन में, आज की दुनिया में अल्टीमेटली अपना इम्पॉर्टेंस ये है कि एंड कस्टमर को हमने क्या किया उसके लिए और उसको क्या फ़ायदा मिला. हाउ यू टच हिम इज़ नॉट थ्रू अ वीडियो एड, हाउ यू टच हिम इज़ नॉट थ्रू अ ब्रांड एम्बेसडर. तो हमारा ब्रांड एम्बेसडर पुनीत है, हमारे ब्रांड एम्बेसडर आप लोग हैं सर. हमारी एक कोशिश है कि साथ मिलके हम एंड कस्टमर की कोई छोटी सी भी मुश्किल सॉल्व कर पाए ना, ऑल ऑफ अस विल स्लीप हैप्पी, और एक छोटी सी दुआ मिलेगी जो ज़िंदगी में बहुत दूर तक जाएगी. दैट इज़ आवर लिटिल एफर्ट. वी आर वेरी प्राउड टू पार्टनर विथ ऑल ऑफ यू. माई हम्बल सबमिशन, हमने अभी प्रोडक्ट शुरू किया है. वी आर लुकिंग फॉर लॉट ऑफ फीडबैक ऑन हाउ टू इम्प्रूव. वी आर ट्राइंग टू कम टुगेदर विथ ऑल ऑफ यू टू मेक दिस अ सक्सेस. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. With that, we end this particular session. We'll now break for a quick tea break. In the interest of time, only 15 minutes, please. And right after the tea break, like we mentioned, we'll have breakaway sessions. We'll have a partition put up in between these two halls, so they become Sovereign 1 and Sovereign 2. Please refer to the agenda that you have to choose what session you'd be a part, you'd want to be a part of. And most importantly, please do not leave back your belongings here. Any valuable items in your bag can get switched. So please ensure that you do not leave your belongings over here. 15 minutes it is. Please join us back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Please request people who are outside to come and take your seats, please. Our next session, Cashless and Paperless, Digitization of Microfinance Operations. Before the event, okay. We have a small presentation, EDOS, a Women Empowerment Initiative of BAIF by Mr. M.B. Ashok. Please, Mr. M.B. Ashok, please come on stage. So,
Good morning to all of you. I represent an organization called BAIF, Development and Research Foundation, based in Pune, which is operating in about 12 states and is about 55 years old. And perhaps one of the oldest NGOs in the country. And I, being an ex-CGM of NABARD, retired CGM, have been associated with the organization for almost about 25 years. Right now, I'm just making a small presentation on one of the initiatives taken by the organization called EDOS, and which has been implemented on a pilot basis in a tribal district called Palghar in Maharashtra. So basically it's about, you all know about the problems in the tribal districts, and those problems have been addressed by this initiative, and this just gives what are the basic problems which we normally encounter in any impoverished tribal district or any impoverished district itself, whether tribal or otherwise. And just I've indicated what are the various problems that we have about the mobile interconnectivity, the lack of brick and mortar bank branches, and the problems that people have, the communities, the rural communities have, in trying to reach the branches of the banks in order to withdraw money or deposit money. So this is some information about the Palghar district, and I'm not going into too much of details about it. It's about one of the most prevalent tribal district in Maharashtra, and therefore it has been chosen for the pilot project by the NGO. This is about introduction to NGO called Bharatiya Agro Industry Foundation, which is now 55 years old and was established in 1967 when Gandhiji had first come to Pune, and it was set up then, and ever since they have been operating in about 12 states in the country right now, and in all the impoverished states again. So they have tried to avoid states which are quite well developed. With the result, many of the southern states are excluded. So the solution that they have come up with is called e-DOS, or electronic DOS, and for women, and they undertake an exercise where married women in the villages are empowered with this initiative called e-DOS, and they are given a facility wherein they are able to help the village communities in order to have the banking transactions with any bank. It's just not just one bank, but any bank through a facility which I'll be coming to a little later. It's called Aadhaar-enabled payment system, which is a small instrument, which is a tool which is used in order to capture the fingerprint of the account holder, and which is used for the purpose of identifying, and which is used for the purpose of any of the transactions which they would like to have with any of the banks in the country. They just need to have the account number. So it began sometime in 2020 when COVID started, and people were finding it very difficult to go about, and therefore they started this initiative. And right now, about 14 lakh transactions have been taken place, and the individual women, they earn money out of the transactions that they have, and this has come up to about 23,000 rupees right now. This has enabled the replication process for 20 e-DOS spread up in Palghar and Nandurbar district. They are trying to replicate it in another tribal district called Nandurbar and maybe other tribal districts as well. But the whole idea of bringing to you the initiative is to inform you that there is an initiative of this kind which BIF would like to replicate in other parts of the country through NGOs which are operating in that state or district. Now, the salient features of this e-DOS is about the localized on-demand service delivery, which is the part and parcel of the whole program. The rewards and incentive for the e-DOS. Therefore, the women, they take a lot of interest because they earn a lot of some money out of this activity. And the provision of value-added services, not just banking services, but other services like mobile recharge, DTH recharge, bill payments, crop insurance, etc., which the villagers find it difficult, although they may have a smartphone, but they don't find themselves competent enough to operate and undertake this exercise. And this is where the e-DOS comes in handy and getting it done on their instrument. And then other e-governance schemes and localized cash recycling, which I just mentioned. So the criteria for e-DOS is preferably it should be a female candidate, and as of now, they have taken only female candidates. And under 35 years of age, married, and special preference for non-employed. They have given a lot of importance for marriage because once they get married, the women, they tend to move out of that place. But married women, hopefully, would remain in that same district or same village. And that's why a lot of importance has been given for the married women who have completed 10th or 12th standard, because in terms of training them, a lot of information has to be given to them, IT information, which any 10th pass or 12th standard pass student will be able to understand and be competent enough to undertake this exercise. They must have a smartphone. Yeah, that's very important, that they should have a smartphone with 3G or 4G or now 5G, and has nationalized private bank account. This person should have an account with a nationalized or a private bank and a computerized bank, but all banks are computerized these days, so that's not an issue. The bank account is linked to the Aadhaar account. The mobile number is linked to the bank account and should have a PAN card. So these are some of the basic criteria which have been indicated. And in order to get into the scheme, the candidate has to pay anything from 650 to 900 rupees in order to give the, I'll tell you about the investments involved, and with this investment, they start their information. Now, these are all the services which are provided, which could be either financial services or other services, and this helps the individual e-DOS in order to make themselves more viable in terms of the earnings that they may get. So this is about the approximate investment for each e-DOS, and they should have a smartphone, a SIM card for about 50 rupees, a fingerprint sensor, which costs about 3,000, an annual data pack, which costs about 2,200, and a registration fee of 650, which I just mentioned to you, and a training fee by the NGO to these people, which is about 500 rupees, and together it works out to 7,400 rupees. So this is the pilot project which I told you a lot of information which I don't want to repeat them. And this pilot project, this gives the quantification of the turnover of the e-DOS, because I had made a case study of what's happening in the district of Palghar very recently, and on that basis I have prepared a case study which has been shared with Sa-Dhan. Now the impact has been beautiful, and the total turnover has been about 41 lakhs, averaging, because I have taken 4 of the e-DOS for my case study, and it averages about 37 lakhs from the month of January 2020 to September 2020. There has been a rapid and acceptance and popularity of the service among the village communities in the district, and whenever they have any problem relating to a mobile, they immediately seek the services of the e-Ghosh. And they reach out to about 1,665 households. In about 10 months, they have done it. And the 4 entrepreneurs which I have taken for my case study have earned a total commission of rupees 78,764. You must realize that all these are married women, and they don't want to go for any other employment, but still they would like to get some money out of the activity that they undertake. And the transactions in the month of July, August, and September have been, despite torrential rains in the block of Vikramgarh in Palghar district, where I had undertaken this study. And it is expected that the revenue generated to be much more enhanced during peak seasons. So this is about how the turnover, transactions, and commissions have taken place for the 4 e-Ghosts like Jyotsana, Shashikala, Nikita, Yashoda. I'm just giving you the names and what has been their experience in terms of the turnover, transactions, and commission which they have earned over the last 10 months. And the future prospects are that the digital livelihood model of e-Ghost has received considerable amount of success like the banking related service, and they keep adding such e-governance, e-health, etc., catering to the indigenous needs of the particular community. It depends on what type of activities are necessary. And the entrepreneurs shared that the state government, which is operating the common service center by identifying the gram panchayats, which are hardly doing anything, if it is given to the e-Ghost also, it would help. So it is for the village communities to decide, the panchayats to decide whether they could do this or not. The e-Ghost entrepreneurs felt that the CSC can be handed over to them and they could operate them as well. The e-Ghost entrepreneurs also feel they can be of help to self-help groups and farmer producer organizations in a lot of activities which they undertake, digital activities, and other farmers groups like dairy societies, etc. in Gujarat in their operational area. So this is about e-Ghost, and I've just given you a snapshot of what the whole program is all about. And in case you are interested in taking up this in any district, in any part of the country, you are most welcome to contact us, and the BIOF would only be too happy to help you in training the women and implementing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok. Hopefully there will be many of us who will be meeting you during the lunchtime. So now the next session, Cashless and Paperless, Digitization of Microfinance Operations. And first I would request Mr. Shayan Ghosh, the National Editor of Mint, to be on the stage. Mr. Kuldip Maity, MD and CEO, VFS Capital Limited. Dr. Neil Patel, CEO and co-founder Awaaz De. Mr. Taron Mohan, founder and CEO, NextGen Telesolutions Private Limited. Please, we'll soon have lunch. Mr. Abhay Parekh, head AEPS, NFS, and Market Initiatives, National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI. Mr. Sapan Parekh, co-founder, Leegality. A little louder, please. No one of us can hear. Thank you so much. Shayan, it's over to you.
A very good afternoon, everyone. As you know, the session is on digitization of microfinance operations. A sector that impacts millions of unbanked and underbanked citizens. we have domain experts here, so without much ado, we'll jump straight in. The first question is to Neil. From your experience so far, what are some of the benefits, tangible benefits that MFIs see in terms of adoption of technology?
Any specific technology or just in general?
Just broadly, if you could just start with that.
Okay, well, it's a broad question, so maybe I'll start with a broad response. If we take a step back, technology is not the ends, it's a means to an ends. And what's the ends? Ultimately, we want to deliver real value to end customers and, of course, to the institutions that are serving them. So let's focus first on the end customers. What is the value that an end customer wants to receive? For any not just a financial product, but any product in general. A few different things from a financial products perspective that an end customer is looking for, particularly in our segment. First, accessibility. She needs to be able to get access to the products that fit her needs. And there's many different dimensions of accessibility as well, including convenience, for example, a variety of products being offered. Second, she wants it to be affordable. And that goes for any market. And third, anyone have an idea what's the third thing that a customer looks for? Okay, that's good. I would put that under accessibility. Anything else? Okay. So along those same lines, I would say the third is trust. You can have accessibility, you can have affordability, but if the customer doesn't trust you, then they don't avail. So I would say that all three of these aspects can be addressed and can be improved, enhanced through technology, through technical solutions. Starting with accessibility, of course, we know the mobile phone, the penetration is growing. Internet penetration in India, if we look at specifically rural, it's I think between 2012 and 2017, it was about 15%. It's grown to about 37% official, I think, as of 2020. So that penetration curve is not just growing, but accelerating, so we can leverage that for accessibility. In terms of affordability, absolutely the benefits of scale, of being able to deliver services through technology, automating certain cost intensive processes. For example, Awazde's own solution reduces the cost of telecalling, or compared to the cost of telecalling, the communication solution is 95% cheaper. So that's a big benefit. And then, of course, in terms of trust, this is where design comes in. This is where it's important to not just blindly develop a technical solution, but to engage a customer in a meaningful way. You need to be able to understand her needs. You need to be able to understand her desires, her aspirations, and be able to interact in an engagement. And from Awazde's perspective, that's our mission.
Right. Also, is there a problem for smaller MFIs to adopt technology? Is there a cost factor that's involved as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would look at it not as a problem, but as an opportunity. I think it's not a question of if smaller MFIs or any MFI in general should adopt technology. It's just a question of how quickly, because we see the environment is such that digital transformation is happening whether you agree with it or not. From an institution's perspective, we talk about value. There's two types of value that I can see that technology has an impact. One is on costs, and the other is on growth. In terms of costs, we can obviously through automation and through scalable solutions, we can drastically reduce OpEx for any institution, whether it's small or large, through carefully designed technical solutions. So for example, with Awazde, we've shown that through our messaging platform, reducing on-time or increasing on-time repayments by 36% for certain institutions. We've seen one institution who has been able to, through the right touch at the right time, increase their very deep overdue bucket for 20 days plus, increase their repayment by 30%, and that's like a 4,000% ROI against the cost that we were able to, that we were offering the service with. So here you can see OpEx get cut. And then on the other side, we'll be talking about digital collections, I guess, a lot in this panel. But there's also the opportunity to, through digital touch points, through technology, especially that's engaging the customer, to be able to learn about that customer, right? So I think from a technology perspective, it's very important, and in fact, Sapan and I were talking about this just before the panel, the user centricity of a technology is the key, especially when you're talking about end users. And so if you're able to engage her in a deep way, you can learn more about her, that allows you to segment, profile her, and be able to deliver value-added services that she actually needs, and that allows you to monetize the customer better.
Okay, I would like to come to Mr. Maity next. So, most loans now, most MFI loans are now disbursed digitally to the bank account, but very little of that is collected in the similar fashion. Do you see that happening anytime soon, and what are the challenges?
First we have to be very clear that we are going for digitization for the benefit of whom? For the benefit of lender or for the benefit of the borrower? So most of the time we always think about the benefit from the lender side. Why I should do the digitization, what will be the cost cutting factor, how can I have the control on my operation, how can I have the control on the frauds. But we are mostly missing the part of the borrower, what she wants, because that is very, very important. Secondly, we have to think that I cannot put a Rolls-Royce engine in an ambassador car. So I have to change the entire microfinance model, because we talked about 10 members group, 15 members group, homogeneous group, financial literacy, group meeting, attending lot of social issues. So now moving from that physical presence to making it digital, and very frankly, I have a doubt once we convert our entire operation to a digital, whether there will be very limited scope of having physical meeting in the group level. Though we all talk about the phygital, so there will be physical base and also digital, but I have some kind of doubt. So these 2-3 things we have to keep in mind. We should not be very hurry to implement this process for the sake of implementing that. First we have to understand where we are working, for whom we are working, because maybe the borrower or MFI working in the Assam, they have a different character who is working in Uttarakhand or in West Bengal. So every geography has their own limitation and scope. So accordingly, we have to take a call whether we should go for a pilot test or for whom we are doing, something like that. And thirdly, there should be some benefit. In India, if we want to introduce something, there should be something free or something to sell. So if the borrower is paying on a digital mode, so I think there should be some incentive for the borrower also, in terms of rate of interest or in terms of the loan processing fees or something like that. There should be some some interest. And the last one, the challenge is still, if you see, so in the first week of every month in a bank, nationalized bank, people go, the old age people who are retired, they go to a bank to get the passbook updated. Though they get the SMS in their phone, but still it's their mindset to see in the passbook whether that money is there in the passbook or not. I think same kind of psychology borrower is also having as on date. Until unless my field staff make the entry in their passbook, yes, 300 or 500 rupee I have received, I think it will take some time, but still they don't believe on the SMS part. So that's my understanding.
Coming to Mr. Abhay Parekh now, on AEPS, of course. So of the 5% that we are talking about, the collection through online means, through digital means, AEPS still constitutes very little of that. What did you see that increasing, and why do you think that's happening at all?
Okay, so AEPS per se being an assistant mode, right, and the segment is also those who would be transacting at a lower ticket size. So that is one part. On the MFI, if I just want to concentrate on that, I think there are the transactions where cash in, cash out is obviously there. One session was there before this, a presentation on e-Dost. But on the collection part as well, we see that AEPS as an assistant model can be used for doing the collections. And there is one reason of low number is also on the device side and the requirement on I would say the devices would require a biometric scanner and other requirement. But with face auth also coming now with UIDI, I think the numbers should increase because the device dependency on the vendor who provides the device, and it would be, currently it is Android supported with a RT service from UIDI itself. So it will be the asset side, it will be reduced in terms of the acquisition cost, etc. And we see with authorizations improving through that mode, I think it can be more useful for the entities to use it.
So it's also now used for onboarding purposes, right?
Yeah, thanks for asking this, yes. So there are, so eKYC, as we say, which is an Aadhaar-based eKYC, only notified entities are allowed today. So there are around 12 MFIs who have been already notified. If you see NBFCs, more than 100 are notified since April. And they can now use eKYC, Aadhaar-based authentication eKYC for the customer onboarding journey. And that is where the paperless can come in play. Out of 12, I understand one have started testing with us as well, and a couple of them are in touch with us for moving it ahead. I think this is the great step because the requirement of notification is now easing out in terms of the timelines which is required for that to come, with more and more entities getting notified by DOR. So that is Department of Revenue to use eKYC, Aadhaar-based eKYC for onboarding. This will definitely help. And again, the face auth part. So today, the requirement is to carry the devices which are biometric devices. The face auth coupled with the video KYC journey, I think this too takes care, where today in assisted, in future maybe with the technology support and some guidelines which may help in self mode, then the KYC can also happen. So you authenticate through an app which is available, as well as the onboarding journey can be smoother. Apart from there, today also the institutions are doing offline eKYC, which is a service available by UIDI, and those who are not notified can make use of this. It is a QR based, as well as the XML is downloaded and shared. There is a journey which customers are doing it, and it will be helpful for digital onboarding.
Right. Going to Mr. Mohan now. So, yeah, you don't have.
Thank you.
So, what do you think are some of the, we have spoken about, we have learned about the AEPS model also. What do you think are some of the drawbacks of that?
Okay, let me come back to, audible? Yeah. Let me come back to the basics of what we think the industry needs. And as Nitin said, Mr. Maity said, it's the borrower side which has to be digitized. It's like what we see in DBT. In DBT, the money comes from the bank account, but then it comes within 4 hours, max 24 hours. It's 100% cash out. So DBT is not helping in terms of digitization. It's only easing in terms of disbursement. And that's why we see the RBI future note for payments. They say that 2025 is the timeline they want to move DBT away from bank account to the e-voucher, which is again an NPCI product, where the voucher comes onto your phone as an SMS code or a QR code. And that can be a merchant specific or can be a specific application based redemption. Could be cash and kind or a combination of both. So ultimately we see the government is also wanting to move on to digitization at the missing leg, which is the beneficiary or the borrower's end. And the segment which is the DBT or the microfinance segment is, so I would say 70% a feature phone segment user. It's not a smartphone. And that segment is a very sweet spot where we as a company have been focusing on and building the technology for enabling them come onto a digital platform. NPCI gave us the formal okay in the month of April this year to onboard UPI onto the platform. And if you come into a stall, I can show how it works, but basically enables a secure, trusted, and a simple solution for any phone, works on a feature phone. What we did take care of there in the development was no OTP. OTP we have taken off completely from our solution. It's built on issuance which is mapped to the Aadhaar, mapped to the UPI bank account and the mobile number over there. And it works on any phone. It does help for you for self-service modes, which includes bill payments, money transfers, merchant payments, a loan request, an insurance request. And also then I can access my full banking or even a wallet. The focus there has been to make it simple and easy, multi-language and any phone compatible. And also then as somebody, I think Mr. Maity said that the borrower end has to be focused on digitization. So we then enable it as either a borrower, a customer application, or an agent who can also do cash in, cash out. UPI now allows you cash in and cash out. And it also allows you as a merchant specific, that I can have my merchant services built onto it. Now a merchant needs what? His basic requirements is, I receive money from my customers and I pay my suppliers. The whole ecosystem of the merchant basically is 95% requirement is to pay his suppliers, which right now is 100% cash. And to convert this cash into a digital ecosystem was the focus. Another great point to note over here is the cost of the service. If you see cash collection today, EMIs are a minimum threshold of about 2,500 rupees because it varies the cost on cash collection. Between 1.5, 1.8 is the cost of cash collection. You may say it's 0.5, no, it's about 1.5. And also then the fear of robbery on the highways, on the village roads, at night a theft happens, whatever happens. So you digitize this whole thing out with a bring the cost of EMI collection down. If I can make it 50 paisa as the cost of EMI collection, either a pull from the customer's phone or a push by the customer, I am taking my threshold of my EMIs down from 2,500 rupees to 500 rupees. I can then do an insurance product where I can collect the EMI, I can collect my premium once a month. That opens up a whole segment of a user base which never was going to be insured. It holds up, if I can do instant loan requests and fulfillment at midnight, I want it out. It'll just open up a new segment of customers who can then say, I want this service to a trusted partner. And for that, our partnership with Sa-Dhan is an amazing partnership because we proposed to the government of India about a few months ago, and we got the okay from them to sponsor a whole pilot out in Karnataka state, Tumkur and Mysore, along with an MFI company to deploy and see how this evolves into a much larger deployable volume scale for digitizing that user segment. And the microfinance is about 45, 50 million users who would like to probably experience this in their own local language, in their basic phone, and the women specifically. Because MFI's focus is women disbursement, it's not the man. The man will go and probably drink his way out in the bank account. So, and women we see in a village are not feature phone, not smartphone savvy. They still carry the feature phone. I've been asked by many people, why is a feature phone there? You and me don't know about it, don't never use a feature phone, but it has 3 basic reasons to still exist. A is battery life. In a village, when an MSEB customer, user leaves his home in the morning, he goes and puts his street corner shop up with maybe a table lamp or an LED lamp over there. He has no point for charging his phone. He wants a simple phone to work. No, a smartphone, how many times reboot? You reboot a smartphone at least twice a week. You clear the memory up at least twice a month. The village guy gets confused. You take a feature phone, keep it in the cupboard for 5 years, pull it out, charge it, put a SIM card, it'll still work. You drop it, it'll still work. So that's the primary reason why even today, I'll give you statistics. We still sell 10 to 12 million phones a month. we still sell them. It's not going to go till we solve the issue of a battery life in a smartphone and affordability. It will never go.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mohan. That was quite a detailed reply. Let's go to Sapan now. Sapan, so what has your experience been in trying to digitize some of your MFI clients? And how easy or difficult it is to actually remove paper from the operation?
So I think right on the panel, we saw different flavors when it comes to digitization. We had Neil being very, very bullish about digitization, right? But we also had Mr. Maity telling us to slightly temper it and wait and watch and not just digitize for the sake of it, right? So our experience also is the same. We have several MFIs being very bullish, want to be the first mover in the industry. And we also have MFIs sort of waiting and watching, not sort of jumping on the digitization bandwagon fully. They are also digitized to an extent, but not everybody wants to digitize all pieces at the same time. Having said that, sort of the feedback we usually get from people is everybody is very interested. We have probably spoken to all MFIs present today here before the event itself, because everybody is really keyed in to digitization. They know digitization will lead to benefits. They just want to figure out when is the right time for them, right? So everybody is asking for what is your ROI of your solution. Everybody is asking what is, can you show me case studies? Can you tell me who else has digitized? Tell me whether you've solved this corner case, which I face in my segment, like Sir was talking about Assam, right? It could be any specific geography or any sort of specific client segment, right? So we see very, very interested voices when we talk to people. There are, of course, few challenges. The first and foremost that we hear about is whether it's accepted by RBI, whether it's accepted by the courts, whether it's accepted by the Ministry of IT, right? Because we are offering digital solutions, that's the first benchmark. I'm happy to share that to 100% extent, I wouldn't even say large extent, to 100% extent, the regulatory sanction is there. There's no gray area in terms of whether you can, for example, digitally execute DPNs, whether you can digitally execute loan agreements, sanction letters. It's very, very clear. There's no gray area, which was the case maybe a few months back or even a few years ago, right? So regulatory action keeps happening, and our regulators very, very forefront when it comes to enabling digitization. Of course, it's not a mandate, but regulators want to enable it. So that's sort of a first question we come across. Second is usually in implementation. Not every MFI, not every bank is at the same stage of digitizing their core banking or LOS or LMS or collection system. So depending on what stage they are, they sort of see different solutions differently. They may not be mature enough to adopt a particular digital solution today, but that doesn't mean they're not looking at you. So they're very interested. It's just about the right timing of it, right? So implementation and how easy can service providers or in-house teams make implementation of it is very, very key. We've seen cases where implementation has taken years. We've seen cases where implementation has taken weeks, right? So it's very important for our solutions to be flexible, to help MFIs implement faster, basis whatever systems they currently use. There's no point of sort of coming in as one of the plugins, but asking for the MFI to change the whole system, right? We don't want to sort of ruffle feathers. Third part, of course, comes to affordability. I think everybody on the panel has mentioned, we've discussed it across panels. Yesterday in the Bharat Finance report, something very interesting was said, right? 45% of the operational cost is the manpower cost. If anything can solve for that bit, that's something that MFIs are looking at very, very closely, right? So if you can reduce that 45% down, while at the same time not diluting the experience, which Mr. Maity was talking about, right, of face-to-face interaction, that's something that will really take MFIs a long way. So these are the sort of three questions we generally interact with, and depending on how mature in terms of their digital life cycle an MFI is, we have seen very, very rapid adoption. Coming to on-ground sort of stats when it comes to digitizing the last leg of onboarding of customer, we have done more than 10 million customer journeys digitally, which has taught us a few things, which has taught us to be flexible in terms of the segment, in terms of the devices that are used, in terms of journeys we sort of stitch together, right? So it's not that it's not happened in the industry already. There are 10 million successful MFI onboardings that we have seen. I'm just being specific to MFIs, right? So that's something to take heart from, and that's something to learn from for all the other MFIs. So yeah, that's about it.
Right. Another question to Mr. Maity here. So I know you touched upon the subject of the center meetings. So once we see more of collections happening digitally, that whole model of center meeting is centered around this social collateral issue. Does that somehow take a backseat then?
I think time has changed, and we have to modify our microfinance products, model, everything in a newer version. Still, almost 99% of the MFIs, they offer same vanilla products, 1 year loan, 18 months loan or 2 years loan for income generating activity. I think this is the right time to offer a customized product, even different kind of rate of interest for a same product for a different segment of the customers, depending on the risk factor. And also, like in the last session, so we have listened that, I mean, initially it was a SHG movement of 20 members with homogeneous group and everything. So from 20 to now became 5. And I think within next 5 years down the line, the individual model will be the lead model. Because now even in the society, we don't take the responsibility of anybody else, right? And here we expect that a poor person, the poor woman, she will take the responsibility of other. And in real sense, if I say as a practitioner, in terms of loan also, in case of any defaults, they may give you for 1 installment, 2 installment, 3 installment, but after that, actually it is very painful for them to repay the entire loan amount. But group is good to have a basic screening, to provide a lot of other social services, financial literacy and everything. But I think as a tool, financial tool, I think down the line, individual model is the lead model. And what I also believe that once you move to the individual model, you can also reduce your political risk. So nowadays, everybody is facing the political risk because you are visible to the politicians. So there is a group in a village. So I mean, politicians you cannot predict. Even you can predict a snake whether that snake will bite or not, but you cannot predict a politician. So that's the fact. So I think once you move towards an individual model and through a digital model, I think you are out of political risk. I think that will be the best part of the digital factor.
Yeah, that's fine. So also a lot of MFIs have started moving into the secured lending space, not just doing this. So the ongoing digitization, does it sort of lay the groundwork for that? Because you need better underwriting, a different kind of underwriting altogether.
Right, of course. I mean, as because there is a just scope of given by the RBI to have a non-microfinance portfolio. I think most of the MFIs, they are exploring their in the different areas in terms of loan against property, even affordable housing, vehicle finance. So I think in that way, I think digital will be the best option.
Okay. Going to Neil now. So, we hear about these new technologies, AI, ML. Banks keep talking about it, NBFCs do to an extent. So, why do you think MFIs are sort of circumspect on those? And the other part of the question is, are they really going to be useful? Are they going to help? Or is it just a fad that everyone's talking about?
Well, I mean, I think for any given technology, there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be a period where you're able to see what works and what doesn't. For something like AI and ML, it's very, very early days. This is a technology also that was developed in a different context and in different languages from where we are in our context in microfinance in India. So I would say that as of right now, it's a very nascent technology. We see very few microfinance institutions using these sorts of very advanced technologies and a very large scale. Experiments are happening. But I think that still there is significant work to be done in terms of making these technologies more intuitive, making them work in all different types of languages. I think for us, the vernacular aspect of it in this segment is the key part. And also, again, from a usability standpoint, these tools have to connect, have to have an emotional connect almost. People have to be able to trust. So there, it's still a significant ways to go. I think in terms of generally where technology is going in this sector, I think AI and ML in these specific areas are just one small part. I think where I see more movement, and I think the panelists have all alluded to this, is some combination of human and technology used in a concert in such a way that it actually enhances the model that has been so successful. So my colleague here mentioned moving towards the individual model. That will take time. In the meantime, there is still the group-based model, which has its own benefits. However, because of technology, it's more difficult especially after COVID, for center meetings to have that sort of a strong attendance and so on. However, we can still think about an evolved version of a center meeting. How can we leverage technology in such a way that it's still convenient for the borrower? We all have moved since COVID, especially from in-person offices, attendance to Zoom. So what is the Zoom meeting for microfinance? How would that look? And I think that's an interesting area to think about. How can we leverage technology in a different way? So I see that there is going to definitely be an omni-channel approach. There's going to be video, there's going to be text, there's going to be feature phone, there's also going to be smartphone. And we have to leverage these various channels in a way, in a combination that is most effective in engaging the customer. So for example, in our work, one of our major areas or major channels of communication is voice, is non-internet dependent voice. So we deliver messages through IVR. That provides a baseline for you to engage with the customer. But with IVR, you can also incorporate text where you want to, for example, send a UPI link to enable payment. You can have conversation over WhatsApp where you want to have more of a back and forth that is not possible through IVR. And so using these various channels in some combination with, of course, AI and ML playing a role, to me is the way forward. Right.
I'll go to Mr. Mohan next. So you spoke about the use of feature phones, and how that can be utilized. So RBI data sort of said that around 400 million, I think, still use feature phones when they launch the UPI 123 Pay. Is that sort of is that inherently mitigate the risk of cyber frauds when you're using a device that's slightly more primitive than what you have?
Okay. Very interestingly, I'll discuss with you. We have a 98% Android penetration in India. And if Alphabet gives you Android to a phone manufacturer, you implement in 3 ways. Take the stock OS, do what you want. Take it self-certification, which basically is what Samsung and larger Oppos and Vivos do. The third is Google certified, which is what OnePlus is. 50% of our phones in India are the Chinese phones, and I don't know what happens in the OS. In my parlance, an OS is like a phone is like a building. A building is as strong as the foundation. A phone is as strong as the OS. And you would see sometimes in your phone happening that OS update happening. Are you sure it's the right update? I don't know. I can go to the side market, my market in Delhi is these small markets, and get my OS updated. I don't know what, by a side load. I don't know what goes in the phone. So in the OS of a phone, I can have all the apps. Through the OS, I can hack into any app. So a phone is as secure as the OS is, which in my viewpoint, I built the BIS specifications for OS security 4 years ago. They've been published but not implemented yet. But it's scary. In our solution, we don't work on the OS. We work on the SIM card layer. No OS can touch our application on the SIM overlay. It is as secure as your ATM card chip. The ATM card chip, if you see the chip in the middle of ATM card, the same chip we use is as secure as that. Nobody can hack into it. It is SIM swap safe. It is a lock to your bank account, mobile number. I can do more locks depending on what the customers want me to put. It just makes it more difficult for the customer to then use it because the certification then becomes a little more complicated. But this is a primary factor which you have to build, is the trust and the confidence and the security. And I've been working with a lot of banks with the CISOs, and I still wonder that, the bank apps are not secure. You'll be scared to see some of the bank apps. And that's what drives me to say that we have to go on to a different technology on a phone, which is called a Trusted Execution Environment, TEE. Go Google it out. It enables you a secure element in a phone to access and handle all your keys and your KYC data in a secure element. That's the ultimate goal. You talk about digital currencies. How can you do digital currencies on a phone which is unsecured? I ask everybody. How can you handle offline payments on a phone which is unsecured? Nobody has an answer to it. The answer is a secure element which is controlled access secure element in a phone. That's your next step. So all your CDBC trials are all online. Not a single trial is offline. Because nobody has the way ahead for an offline CDBC trial today on a phone. I ask everybody questions. Nobody can answer it out. And the bubble will only burst the day it's hacked out. And then you'll come back to say, let me go back to square root and rethink my whole implementation of a CDBC or an offline wallet. You'll be scary. I can talk to, I'm old mobile phone guy. I can talk to you how to hack a phone immediately. So ultimately that comes with that.
Right. I'd like to come to Mr. Parekh next. So, there is still some amount of unease about AEPS failure rates in the industry. I mean, since it was launched, the Aadhaar Pay was launched and all. Does it kind of, for MFIs implementing this as part of a solution, does it risk defaults when AEPS failure has happened? I mean, it doesn't work as expected.
Okay. So, failures when we see in transaction processing, so we group it under two. One is the technical failures, which is because of the issues at the network or the application or the system level. Another are the actual, not the failures, but the declines, which happens by the institution where you hold an account. So I am saying for a typical cash withdrawal or a Bhim Aadhaar Pay transaction, or for matter any debit authorization transaction, there are some limits, there are some restrictions put by the banks for the account. There is an authorization process. So if it is card, it is generally the PIN. In AEPS, basically it is the biometric. And this biometric matching happens by sending that request to UIDI. So CIDR is accessed through ASAs like NPCI, and for AEPS it is NPCI which access it. So the member's transaction, when the customer's transaction happens, this message goes to UIDI and they do the match. Now to see that the authorization is proper and to avoid false positive, also by design, it is such that some level of declines may be seen and you have to do retries. So there is one part. Second, as part as the process itself, NPCI has been working with banks specifically on technical decline part, and there are some checks which are there. There are some thresholds which are there, and we closely work with the ecosystem to see that the banks who are at the customer side are below those thresholds, and if they exceed those thresholds, the actions which follows to bring it back, so that indirectly it brings pressure for the upgrading or wherever required, the fine tuning of the application or the network side. In AEPS specifically, and I'll take a minute more, AEPS specifically, we were on ISO. We migrated from card technology legacy card ISO 8583. Now we are on XML, and it is a common code which we use for UPI or IMPS, same AEPS, and more than 90% volume contributing banks on both sides, issuer, acquirer, now on XML. There is one advantage, it also takes care of the FMR, FIR, and I will just elaborate. The Aadhaar authentication which was happened with finger minutia record, but now finger image record will also travel to have the liveliness check which UIDI can do. The packet size will increase, so that is supported with XML. So because ISO have a constraint on the size of the packet PID block. So what happens is with this, we will see that because of the latest movement from the ISO to XML, there will be some improvement. Having said that, initially we are seeing some more declines because banks and entities are moving towards it. It requires higher bandwidth, higher processing capability as far as this can, but brings more flexibility to add more use cases. And as I was saying earlier, and to repeat, and what Mr. Taron has been sharing is, still there are great number of customers who are served, and specifically in this segment, which may still be on cash or other modes, but not be on digital mode. And this kind of assisted model to do collection will only help rather than deteriorate those situations where transactions fails or something. It is an alternative which is available. And it done away with the hassles of handling cash and few things which he shared earlier as well. I think there is a decline rate which will be more than any other because of the biometric involved. We have to see how face auth takes care of some of it, because the biometric which is on wear and tear or moisture or during the seasons, whatever happens with the fingerprint and it requires retry, we have to see how face auth works and whether there is a better approval rate on that with the experience when more transactions happens through that.
But there's also a challenge that given that MFI is also catered to a lower strata of the society, a lot of them work, are in hard labor, and their fingerprints also tend to change over time. So, is there a way that can be mitigated?
Yeah, so currently, and maybe not NPCI per se, but from UIDI currently, those who have completed 10 years on the biometric updation, they have given notification that residents should do it. Some more awareness and education to the customer, because these are assisted transactions. If you see in one try, second try, it doesn't happen, it is better to educate the customer to do updation again. And face auth, as I said, where all this will not come in play, it will be contours of the face. I think that should help.
Adding a point over there. They have in NPCI's language called TD and BD, technical decline and business decline. So normally you combine both and give a number out, but actually it should be a TD which is more to be taken care of. Business decline could be fingerprint gone, wrong PIN entry. Those also come into declines in a bank reporting format. So focus should be on TD, which is technical decline, rather than business decline. Your language, NPCI language.
Right. Now to Sapan. So you talked about the whole idea of going paperless, but how does it help in regulatory compliance, say in risk, in monitoring, and other such segments?
So there are a few steps in the process, which is what is under the regulatory purview, right? The first is whether regulatory and sort of risk purview. The first is whether the documentation which is exposed to the customer is correctly filled with the right information. Second, whether the customer can understand the document. Can the customer engage with the UI UX of the platform you're providing to understand what's happening, right? Do they understand they're giving consent? Do they understand they'll be obligated to repay? Of course, in a segment like MFI with in on-ground touch points, these sort of things get solved because of the physical presence. But what also needs to be done is the customer needs to understand that they're getting into a contract with somebody, right? They are supposed to repay it back. So these are the touch points. Post onboarding, there are also several touch points, which is where risk and regulatory framework comes, which is, are the documents stored properly? Can you retrieve the document for an audit, internal or external? When you go paperless in this journey, you can ensure that the process flow you set is adhered to strictly, right? Which means that the data is directly moved from LOS into your document, the document is correctly generated, the customer can always see the document, right? At no point of time can a field agent be like, it's fine, ignore it, let's move on, right? What is possible in a physical journey. Signature frauds can come to zero. Again, once again, I'm not saying almost zero, I'm saying zero, right? So this really helps you then in the audit part. It helps you in document retrieval part, which means your documents are not moving around the country from one branch to the HO, from HO to a third-party storage, and so on and so forth, which means you save a lot of real estate also, because they are not just lying on shelves. So the risk associated with the complete documentation kit comes to negligible, if not zero. And that's sort of the benefit a lot of MFIs have seen. Right, and talking about ROI, I think we discussed ROI quite a bit here. The ROI is not only in terms of reduction of employee cost, right? The ROI is also in terms of if the employee is free enough to do more business, to visit the customers more, to collect more. Are we giving them the extra 2 hours in the day to sort of work towards the customer's interest, right? So the ROI also needs to be seen not only from the perspective of whether the effort of your employees have reduced, but also what else can be achieved in that time, right? So the ROI is a cumulative of the two.
Okay, great. So before we open it up for questions, we'll just come to all of you for some parting comments, starting with you, Mr. Maity.
No, I already said that digital, definitely we have to accept that. We cannot, and this is, it should be win-win for everyone. I mean, that should be good for the lender as well as for the borrower. And I think maybe 20 years back, we never felt the power of thumb impression. We always said that pen is powerful. So now again, we are going back to the basics. So now your thumb became more powerful than your pen. So I think we have to go with the changes, and that's life. Thank you so much.
Right.
No, I guess I'll just, first of all, thanks to everyone for their insights. Digital is certainly here. We can leverage it in a way that increases value for the end customers that we're seeking to serve and for the institutions that are serving them. We can get a benefit from both sides through the accessibility, through the scalability that is achieved, and also the affordability. Those are the major factors that would allow us to continue to grow and serve customers better. I would say that one also missing, maybe not missing, but one important point that digital affords as a side effect, but that becomes increasingly important, is as you're able to engage your customers in deeper ways, combining both physical and digital, but especially digital, the way in which you're engaging them is more easily aggregated, is more easily processed, and that rich engagement, that rich data that you're collecting through those interactions can very powerfully be transformed into insight. So where right now, because of a lot of manual process in the industry, we're not able to learn enough about our customers to be able to serve them better. One big advantage of digitizing some of the interaction, automating in careful and clever ways, is that we can turn that data into insight, which then in turn allows us to understand those customers better. We reach collectively about 1 crore unique borrowers every month. And all of that data, that massive data stream that we're collecting, allows us to in turn develop a richer understanding of who these customers are, and therefore we can serve them better in a more personalized way. So that's the big advantage of being able to leverage digital, is that we can ultimately create value for the end customer.
Okay, Mr. Parekh, in under a minute, your closing thoughts.
Yeah. So just 2 points. Most of the things have been said, and one is I believe there should be multiple options, and I would concentrate on payment system itself. Multiple payment options available, may it be to disburse the money, or may it be to collect the money, so that the time and effort required, and of course the cost required, is so low, and the customer becomes a person who chooses which is the way, and the lender or the MFI to talk about should have those options available that the customer can choose from. It should not be that it is only this option available to do the collection, which helps in better collection rate as well, I feel. Second is what Neil talked about, is the customer journey, digitized customer journey. And I think more and more, though the topic is digitalization of MFI operations, but I see more and more digital payment being done, or digital channel being used by residents. What happens is, there are so many people who may not have credit history, and the lending would be required to them. And this can be used as a surrogate to see what is their banking, what is their money coming into their account, how they are spending the money, and maybe this can be used for the lending things. Yeah.
Thank you, Shyam, and the people in the dais here to contribute to this afternoon session. I just say we have a long way to go. We, as my rough estimates go, we have 100 million active users per month on UPI or on digital platforms. 1.3 billion people, out of which about 800 million are addressable on payments. The gap is huge. And it only can be covered if you give a customer a trusted, secure, simple, easy to use platform. You cover 95% of his basic daily needs for financial services. Could be payments, money transfers, EMIs, loans, disbursements, accessing his bank account and wallet. That could be the first step to digitizing and trying to achieve the next 200 million, and then next 200 million. So we have to build applications and services right now, the next step beyond the first 100 million, which I think the microfinance industry is ideally placed because they have the feet on the street. And I have some numbers. Each FOS for MFIs accesses about 150 people a day in his interactions in a village or in a community center. That should be the best route to educating the customers, upgrading the skill sets on digital payment services. CSCs are the right way to go ahead. A long way to go. I think the base is still coming. The base is coming up in place. That's what my comments are.
Right. Sapan.
So, for mid-sized and small-sized MFIs, the opportunity to digitize is to reduce their operational cost. Yesterday, we learned that large MFIs have an operational cost of maybe 7%, but smaller and mid-tier have at least 2% higher, right? So the opportunity is very clear. With digitization, you don't need to expand your AUM to bring down the cost, the operational cost. You can do it merely by adopting certain strategic solutions which have outsized impact. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do we have time for questions? Do we have time for questions? Yeah. Great. So please state your name and the institution that you represent.
Namaskaram. This is Anil Kumar from SKDIDP. Sir, actually, the very basic of deposit options for SHG members is very needful, because their earnings in cash mode, every day they do earn, but they don't have options to deposit that amount to their account, because bank branches is somewhere 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometers. If they want to deposit, they have to take a leave for that day. So this being the case, AEPS deposit mode, even maybe under DigiPay, it's a fantastic platform wherein our poor people can save their money. But here, what we are getting from the various banks and all of the things, there's a lot of hurdles to get into registrations of deposit mode. Even Ministry of Electronics and IT has given an advice, and maybe RBI or NPCI has given a deadline, because all banks to enroll for AEPS deposit mode. But still, I believe that only 22 banks enrolled. Why? Since last 1 year, these things are happening. I also came to know that none other than Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah ji called a meeting for this purpose. But still, banks are not coming for registering deposit mode. What is the real issue, sir? And what is the road ahead for us? Because this is inevitable and we need it. Because once that amount is deposited in the account, there are a lot of options for customer to pay back, transfer, or through any NASH mechanism, whatever it may be. But converting hard cash into digital is real difficult practically in the field. But AEPS deposit mode is only and only the best option for addressing this issue. Please, sir.
Thanks. Two things. One, depositing through using AEPS to the account which is being held by a resident or a customer at their own BC point. So suppose a customer is of SBI and they approach the SBI BC point. I will address, I understand you are talking about interoperable, but I will address that. So for the benefit of others as well. So that is there. Every bank is allowing that. Second is when it comes to interoperability, where suppose a person wants to go to some other BC point, bank's other BC point and do it. I understand 22 banks are live. As I said earlier, we were migrating from ISO to XML, and because of the mandate also for FMR-FIR to reduce the frauds related to biometric related frauds and liveliness checks, every entity in AEPS or the banking system who is accessing AEPS are undergoing those development and changes. So they are into certification, they are into implementation, and this has delayed a bit. That is one part. Second, specifically of SHG, if I talk about, so the SHG accounts are operated by two joint operations, most of the SHG accounts, right? Or I think all SHG accounts, okay. So there was a requirement which we understood from NRLM was also that dual authentication should start, right? And to address that, already two banks are into testing for dual authentication, which is for deposit as well as withdrawal. So your concern is right, but because of the technology change, which is a very big change, as I said, the packet size increased by 5 times. Banks have taken its time to migrate. We are also pushing banks as fast as possible. They can come and enable other services.
Right. Final question, if there's one. Sure. Please also state your name and institution.
My name is Shubham. I am from ACFL. It's Bihar Based NBFC MFI. My question is to Mohan sir. As you are saying that finance on finger, whether it be base phone or smartphones. Right now, as we see in Bihar particularly, if we talk about, most of the account holders are CSP account holders, and we do not have that debit card to enroll them to UPI, even though the smartphones are prominently in use in every household, and it's on popularity. How to bring cashless model with easing out and sidelining the debit card or easy access to UPIs?
Okay, so
what's the way ahead?
Yeah. So right now, we've been discussing NPC also same issue. The segment we are targeting is a non-debit card user mainly. Though he has a card, it's inactive. It hasn't been activated with the PIN number into it. So NPCI, UIDI is I think ready with or getting ready with validation using Aadhaar number as a bank account. As long as Aadhaar number is mapped to a bank account. Has it come alive or not yet? I think it's...
So it is live with few banks and other banks are joining. Aadhaar OTP you can enable on UPI even if your debit card is inactive or you don't have it.
They're working on that. Answers your question?
So maybe rest of the questions over lunch. Before we disperse for lunch, may I thank all the panelists and also Shayan for this wonderful session. I would like to request Sa-Dhan formal chairman, Jagnanda sir, to come on stage and give out the small token of gift appreciation. Jagnanda sir, please, please, everyone, a round of applause for Jagnanda sir. Mr. Shayan, Ghosh, National Editor Mint. Mr. Kuldip Maity, MD and CEO, VFS Capital Limited. I can understand all of us are hungry, but little louder. Thank you so much. Dr. Neil Patel, CEO and co-founder of Awaaz De. Mr. Abhay Parekh, Head AEPS, NFS and Market Initiatives, National Payments Corporation of India. Mr. Taron Mohan, founder and CEO, NextGen Telesolutions Private Limited. And Mr. Sapan Parekh, co-founder, Leegality. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, all of you, sir, please.